Did you know that when someone over 60 receives an osteoporosis diagnosis, one of the first things that can change isn't their bones, but the way they start to move? Suddenly, lifting something feels more dangerous. Bending down brings hesitation. Walking on uneven ground creates insecurity. And exercise, which used to be part of everyday life, starts to feel like something better avoided. The problem is that spending more and more time sitting and gradually reducing activity can also mean losing strength, balance, and confidence. And those are exactly some of the abilities we need to preserve in order to keep walking, standing up, climbing stairs, and carrying out our daily activities independently. Having osteoporosis requires attention, but it doesn't mean the body has to stay still. The right kind of movement can be part of caring for your muscles, balance, and physical function, always adapted to each person's characteristics. Not everyone starts from the same place. Someone who has been training for years will have different needs than someone who has been sedentary for a long time, and a person with a history of fractures may need specific modifications. That's why if there's a previous fracture, especially a spinal one, significant pain, a recent injury, or any condition that could affect how certain movements are performed, it's best to check with a health professional first. When we talk about osteoporosis, almost all the attention tends to go to the bones, but bones don't work alone. Muscles generate force, joints allow movement to happen, the nervous system coordinates every action, and balance keeps the body stable. Walking down a sidewalk, standing up from a chair, climbing a step, or turning to change direction seem like simple gestures because we do them automatically. Behind each one, though, there's precise coordination between different parts of the body. Preserving those abilities can be just as important for daily life as building strength. That's why the 3 movements in this video serve a purpose far broader than simply completing a routine. The first focuses on the hip and on the ability to control one leg while standing. The second works the muscles along the back of the body from a stable position. And the third recreates an action you probably perform several times a day, getting up from a chair. This isn't about proving how much you can handle or ending up exhausted. The goal is to understand what the body is doing, how to perform each movement, and how to adjust it so the challenge matches your current level. Before we begin, there's something important you should know. These exercises are designed as gentle, controlled movements, but osteoporosis doesn't affect everyone the same way. If you've had a spinal fracture, multiple fractures, a recent fracture, significant pain, or you're unsure which movements are right for you, check with your doctor or physical therapist first. The idea isn't to fear exercise, it's to find the way of moving that's right for your body. Let's start with the third one.
Exercise number 3, hip extension. There's an area involved in almost every step we take, one that tends to go unnoticed until difficulties show up. The hip is involved when we walk, when we climb a step, when we stand up from a chair, and when we move a leg backward. As the years go by, losing activity can make some of these actions require more effort. Maybe a staircase that once felt insignificant starts to tire you out, or getting up after sitting for a long time no longer feels so automatic. Training the hip muscles can be a way to preserve part of that ability. Stand behind a sturdy chair and first make sure it's stable. Rest your hands on the backrest and place your feet about hip-width apart. Keep your knees relaxed, not locked, and settle into a comfortable stance. From there, slowly move one leg backward and then return to the starting point. The movement should be calm and controlled without swinging your body. Repeat several times and then switch sides. There's no specific height you need to reach. Even a small movement can be enough when it's done correctly. One of the most common mistakes is trying to move the leg too far back. To do that, the torso starts leaning forward and the lower back ends up doing more work than it should. If that happens, shorten the range. A leg that moves just a few inches with control can be far more useful than one that reaches far back while the whole body loses stability. The range can increase over time as the movement gets easier, but control has to come first. This exercise engages the muscles that extend the hip, especially the glutes, along with other muscles that help stabilize the body. The glutes don't serve a purely aesthetic purpose. They kick in whenever the body needs to produce force from the hip, like when climbing stairs, standing up, or moving around. That's why training this area has a direct application to everyday activities. We're not trying to isolate a single body part as if it worked on its own. We're teaching several structures to work together during a movement. While doing the repetitions, the sensation should feel like manageable muscle work. There's no need to chase pain or push the leg to its limit. If balance feels tricky, keep one hand firmly on the chair. If insecurity remains even then, scale the movement back and do fewer repetitions. A good progression can start with strong support, and as stability improves, move toward relying less on the chair. Difficulty doesn't need to jump all at once for progress to happen. The chair serves another important purpose. For some people, the biggest obstacle isn't a lack of strength, but the fear of losing balance. When that fear is present, the body can stiffen up and the movement loses its natural flow. Having stable support allows you to focus on execution and build confidence while training the muscles. Over time, as your ability improves, that support can be reduced gradually. It's not about proving you can do it without help from day one, but about building the stability needed to require less and less assistance. Now, think about what happens outside the exercise. Every time you take a step, the body has to shift weight from one leg to the other. When you climb a step, one leg needs to produce enough force to lift you up. When you change direction, the hip helps stabilize the movement. These are small tasks that repeat hundreds of times throughout the day. That's why a routine focused on strength and balance can hold much greater value once it's connected to these real actions. Do several repetitions at a pace you can control and switch sides. If the movement feels hard today, reduce the number. If it feels easy, don't rush to speed it up. First, check whether you can hold a stable posture, complete the range without compensating, and return to the starting point with control. Only after that should you think about progressing. Strength isn't just about moving a body part, it's also about controlling what happens throughout the entire movement.
Exercise number 2, glute bridge. The second movement changes the body's position completely. The glute bridge lets you train the muscles at the back of the hip from a stable base with no need for weights. From the outside, it looks almost too simple, but that simplicity may be exactly what allows you to focus on the quality of the movement. Even so, it's not a required position for everyone. If getting down to the floor is difficult, unsafe, or not appropriate for your situation, there are other ways to train hip strength. If this variation works for you, lie on your back on a firm surface, bend your knees and place your feet flat on the floor about hip-width apart. Let your arms rest relaxed at your sides. From there, gently press your feet into the floor and lift your hips in a controlled way. Pause briefly at the top and lower back down slowly, then repeat. The goal isn't to reach a specific height. What matters is being able to go up and down without any jerky movements. Pay special attention to your lower back. When someone tries to lift the hips too high, they can end up arching the back to gain a few extra inches. There's no need for that. Lower the height until you find a point where you can stay in control. The movement should feel stable and comfortable. Breathing continues naturally, and you don't need to hold your breath to complete each repetition. A well-executed exercise doesn't have to look impressive to be useful. The glutes play a major role in this movement, along with other muscles in the hips and trunk. These structures work together in actions like standing up, climbing stairs, and walking. Building strength in this area can help improve the physical capacity needed for different activities, but it's important to keep expectations realistic. The glute bridge doesn't cure osteoporosis, and no single exercise can. Bone health depends on several different factors, and a movement routine is only one part of overall care. You also need to be especially careful about which exercises you choose when osteoporosis is involved. Someone with good mobility might be able to do a variation that another person with a history of vertebral fractures shouldn't attempt without an individual assessment. If there's a previous fracture, significant back pain, a recent injury, or difficulty getting up from the floor, it's worth getting professional guidance before adding this kind of movement. The point isn't to create fear, but to keep someone from automatically copying a routine that wasn't designed for their situation. If the floor isn't a good option for you, the session doesn't have to end there. You can train hip strength through other movements done standing or seated. The goal is to build an ability, not to complete a specific position. That distinction matters a great deal. When someone understands what they're actually trying to train, they can find different paths to reach the same goal. When they simply copy an exercise, they can run out of alternatives the moment that movement stops being appropriate for them. Another important detail is speed. Doing the bridge too fast lets momentum take over part of the work. A controlled movement lets you feel the muscles working better and hold the position throughout the range. There's no need to turn every repetition into slow motion. It's enough to avoid bouncing, sudden drops, and any movement you can't control.
You can start with just a few repetitions and rest whenever you need to. As the exercise becomes familiar, progress can come from slightly increasing the repetitions or improving your control whenever that's right for you. There's no need to change everything at once. A body that's starting out after years of inactivity needs time to adapt. And there's a fascinating connection between this exercise and the next one. The bridge trains force production from a stable position, but in real life, that force has to turn into movement. We need to use it to stand up, walk, climb, and change position. That's why the last exercise matters so much. It takes the strength built in the legs and hips and carries it directly into an action we use every single day. Exercise number 1, standing up from a chair. There's a movement you probably perform several times a day without ever thinking of it as exercise. You sit down for breakfast, you get up. You sit on the sofa, you get up. You get into the car, you get out. You go to the bathroom, you stand back up. While this action stays easy, it seems insignificant. But once it starts to feel hard, its importance becomes obvious. We need strength in the legs and hips, coordination, and enough control to move from sitting to standing. Place a sturdy chair on a stable surface. If needed, set it against a wall so it doesn't slide. Sit near the edge with both feet flat on the floor. Find a comfortable, stable position. From there, lean your body slightly forward from the hips and press your feet into the floor to stand up. Once standing, stabilize your body. Then, send your hips back and lower slowly until you're seated again. The way down deserves just as much attention as the way up. Many people manage to stand up, but then drop into the chair when it's time to sit. Try to avoid that. Controlling the descent means the muscles keep working as the body lowers. It doesn't need to be extremely slow. It just needs to feel like you're guiding the movement instead of letting gravity do it for you. The rise mainly involves the leg and hip muscles. The trunk also needs to stay stable, and the whole movement requires coordination. The feet need to be firmly planted, the body needs to lean forward at the right moment, and the legs need to produce enough force to lift the body's weight. When any of those abilities declines, standing up can start to feel much harder. That's why this simple exercise can be such a useful tool for observing physical function. If you need to use your hands, that's fine. At first, you might need to rest them on your thighs or use something stable for support. Another option is starting from a slightly higher chair, since the shallower the seat, the less force you'll need to start the movement. Over time, as your ability grows, you can try reducing that help gradually. Maybe you start with both hands, then one, and eventually none. Each stage marks a step of progress.
Also, pay attention to your knees. As you rise, let them track in a stable line over your feet. There's no need to force them outward or hold a rigid position. What matters is avoiding any sudden inward movement and keeping a stable base. If you notice you're losing control, scale the difficulty back. A higher chair, fewer repetitions, or a pause between each one can completely change the experience. Now think about what this movement really represents. You're not doing a squat just to strengthen your legs. You're practicing the ability to get up from a seat. That same skill shows up when you get out of the car, get up from bed, rise from the sofa, or need to stand after sitting for a long time. When an exercise mirrors an action we use in daily life, it takes on a different kind of meaning. And that's why this movement can be one of the most important in the entire routine. Not because it's magic, and not because there's a set number of repetitions that guarantees independence. Its value lies in letting us practice a concrete ability. If standing up from a chair is hard for you today, that movement can become an opportunity to train. If you can already do it with ease, you can use it to maintain that ability. How to know if you're progressing? Progress after 60 doesn't always show up as more repetitions. Sometimes it shows up in much smaller ways. Maybe you used to need both hands to stand up, and now you can do it with just one. Maybe the hip extension used to throw off your balance, and now you can do it with more stability. Maybe the bridge used to feel awkward, and now you can control every phase of the movement better. All of those signs mean the body is building a real ability. It can also happen that some days you have less energy. That doesn't necessarily mean you've lost everything you've gained. The body changes from one day to the next. You slept worse, you walked more, you sat for a strong stretch, or today just isn't a good day. Scaling back intensity when needed doesn't mean going backward. It's part of maintaining a routine that can stay with you for a long time. A good session doesn't have to leave you exhausted either. The goal isn't to finish so tired that the rest of the day becomes difficult. Exercise should complement your life, not get in the way of living it. If you can go on with your normal activities after training and recover properly, you're far more likely to keep the routine going consistently.
And remember that having osteoporosis doesn't mean you should stop moving out of fear. It also doesn't mean every exercise is appropriate. The difference lies in learning to choose, adapt, and progress. When there's a vertebral fracture, multiple fractures, a recent injury, or a specific concern about a movement, professional guidance can help you figure out which options are right for you. The goal is for exercise to build confidence, not fear. In the end, these 3 exercises tell a very simple story. The hip extension trains an ability we need to move and stabilize ourselves. The bridge builds strength in the muscles at the back of the body when that position is appropriate. And standing up from a chair turns that strength into a skill we use constantly. We're not trying to get back the body we had at 30. We're taking care of the body we have today so it can keep going with us for many years to come. We want to preserve the ability to walk, stand up, climb a step, move around our home, and do the things that are part of our life without depending on someone else for every small movement. So, the next time you stand up from a chair, remember you're not doing something insignificant. Your feet are creating a base, your legs are producing force, your hips are helping lift your body, and your nervous system is coordinating the entire movement. An action that seems automatic can become an excellent opportunity to notice how your body is functioning. And if any of today's exercises felt hard for you, don't read that as a sign you can't improve anymore. You may have simply found the point you need to start from: a higher chair, fewer repetitions, more support, a smaller movement, more rest. Your starting point doesn't have to impress anyone, it just has to be right for you. If you're interested in learning how to train after 60 in a simple, mindful, and practical way, subscribe to Fit Old Woman. This channel isn't just about doing exercises, it's about understanding why we do them, how we can adapt them, and how to turn movement into a tool for preserving strength, balance, and independence.